Do you ever feel like your kid pushes back against every single thing that you do or say, every rule, every piece of advice? It's just so frustrating. Like, you want to raise a responsible, confident kid who can make decisions for themselves. You don't want to be involved. You don't want to micromanage. You don't want to be in control, in charge, and you definitely don't want the battles anymore. And the idea of like walking on eggshells or constantly clashing, those two polarities are just like the worst. Well, here's the truth. Your kid, what they're really craving is more independence. And you know that that's the core of the battle that you have every day. More freedom. But they want to do that in a way that feels supported, not abandoned. I think this is going to be maybe one of the most important episodes that we've sent out from school. I've been studying autonomy for, 12 years, and specifically doing a deep dive in the research and the science, the evidence that points to the parents who provide autonomy support. And we're going to get into what that means, are the ones who help kids grow quicker. You see way less power struggles, and you actually empower your kid to make wise choices quickly. And it's not without some headaches or problems. In fact, you might be hesitant towards providing more support just for that fact. And I'm going to get into the top 10 reasons why parents don't like to offer autonomy to their kids. So welcome to this episode, Why Letting Go Helps Kids Grow. We're going to dig in and walk through this together. Raising teenagers is no joke. It is not for the faint of heart. And it just requires a different skill set, a different frame of reference, different principles, different moves. The kids that we had when we were changing diapers, when we were getting them ready and dressed for school, the kids that wanted to snuggle in our beds and wouldn't leave us alone are now closing the doors. They're hiding on their devices. They're grumpy, maybe a little smelly, and irritated by almost everything you do. I'll never forget being in the car where one of my kids turns to me in disgust, "Do you have to breathe like that?" I didn't know breathing was a choice, but yeah, these battles that we have with kids. I want to walk through the top 10 reasons why parents struggle to provide autonomy support. And it's a combination of fears, misconceptions, and external pressures. Number one, and there's a quiz if you want to take this and at the end of this kind of do a little bit of self-assessment for your parenting, your autonomy supportive parenting. We've got it for you in the show notes, and I'll circle back to that in just a bit. Number one reason, fear of failure or mistakes. Parents worry that if they give their kids too much freedom, they'll make poor decisions. Yeah, of course, they will. When I was given more freedom at the age of 16, one of the things that I did with a good friend of mine was, remember rollerblading? He and I would find the steepest hills in Orange County where we grew up, and one of us would drive the car with a giant camcorder on their shoulder, while the other one, while the car was moving 35, 40 miles per hour, would open the door and with a pair of rollerblades on their feet, would get out of the car and then bomb that hill, while the other guy was driving behind, filming, blaring loud punk music. And we would get the peak speed that we could get up to is about 44, 45 miles per hour. By the way, this is pre-helmets. I don't even think they sold helmets in the mid-90s. If they did, we didn't have one. So parents who give more freedom to their kids worry that their kids will make choices that are poor and they will have lasting consequences. And this fear, of course, leads to, for many parents, just to make the gut move to be overprotective or micromanaging, because we value our kids so much, especially their safety, especially their future. That's number one. Number two is just, frankly, a desire for control. Some of us just can't help it. We are the kinds of people who take charge. Letting go of control and giving it to our kids can be difficult, especially when we feel responsible for their success or for their behavior. And we might think that maintaining like this really strict oversight will ensure that the guardrails will be intact and our kids will stay on track, even if it undermines independence. And a big part of this is imagining future success. If we're worried about the future through the lens of safety, through the lens of success, and forget that part of our definition of success for the future for our kids is full autonomy. It's responsibility matched with freedom. Then we might parent differently. The third one is just misunderstanding autonomy. I think a lot of parents assume that giving your kids more freedom, more autonomy, is being more permissive. And because we can't trust them yet, because they haven't demonstrated wisdom, they haven't demonstrated responsibility, permissiveness seems like bad parenting. It sounds like you're just going to let your kids do whatever they want without guidance or without boundaries. The fourth one would be just kind of the social pressure. You look around and you see perhaps other parents who are very involved in their kids' lives. And it can feel like that's what good parents do. And so we pull back from our instinct to offer more autonomy because we want to fit in. And we might feel like if we loosen the reins too much, then the kids next to us, to our right and to our left, are going to get an advantage over our kids. The fifth reason we hesitate to give our kids more autonomy is just a perceived lack of readiness. Like we just look at our kid and think they're not mature enough yet. And then you go down a cycle where you don't really ever give them a chance to demonstrate that. Part of offering, and we'll get into this, how you start growing towards autonomy is giving them a chance to fail. And you look at them and think they will fail. So you're just gun shy. You're just, of course, hesitant to give them more freedom. The sixth would be the desire to protect your kids from discomfort. It's not cool to have kids who have big feelings. It's not easy. In fact, it can take over a family. You got a kid that's angry, disappointed, ashamed, embarrassed, anxious, upset, and you're going to hear about it. And it's going to be loud. It's going to be messy. And that just takes more. It's just stressful. It takes more time than we have. And it's well-intentioned to kind of protect them from that, but it's ultimately a disservice to them. The seventh reason is some parents feel like if I'm not involved as much in their day-to-day activities, that we're going to lose the connection that is so important. Because the more you give your kids the freedom to make their own choices and kind of be in charge of their own little worlds, the less they need us. And if they don't need us, then the question would be, then what value do I have to them? The eighth one is, I think, just a real pressure for outcomes, whether it's academic success, athletic performance, college admissions. It feels like the stakes are too high right now to let our kid make up their own minds and manage their own affairs. That pressure is so significant to some parents that they inadvertently co-opt a kid's freedom and necessary growth opportunities. The ninth one, I think, would just be like insecurity in parenting skills. Maybe you just don't know how to do it. You never saw it. It wasn't what your parents offered. You don't really have the tool set to know how to negotiate with your kids what they're in charge of and what they're not. And I think the last one would just be patterns. We're just used to telling our kids what to do, what to wear, what to eat, how to act, scheduling. You're in charge. You're the master of their lives. So those are the 10 reasons why we might hesitate to offer our kids more autonomy. Like I mentioned, there is a quiz that we have that can help you do a real look in the mirror at your parenting style. And what we're going to get into in the remainder of this episode is how do we do it? And let me just give you a little encouragement. Offering more autonomy, support to your kid does not mean you're stepping away from parenting. It's about evolving your role to guide and empower them, which I believe, and I think you believe too, is your role. And by focusing on cultivating independence, like that's an intentional thing that you're going to do with them. with clear boundaries, with clear guardrails and support around them, you can actually build trust in your relationship. You can actually develop resilience in them, as well as mutual respect. And you'll be triggering the engine that's inside of them to manage their own lives effectively, which is a core longing. Now, where does this research come from? It comes from the kind of godfathers of the positive psychology movement. If that's a buzzword for you, that's distracting. Don't worry. It's a thing called self-determination theory that's been heavily researched for over 35, 40 years. A lot of the folks come from the University of Rochester. There's psychologists named Edward Deasy, Richard Ryan. These are guys that I've listened to, read countless research papers from. They have a fantastic website that we'll link in the show notes, Self-Determination Theory. They're very generous with their research, and what they've kind of uncovered are what they would call the 3 psychological needs, the 3 needs that every human has. And they are, number 1, the autonomy, which they would define as the need to feel like you're in control of your own actions and decisions. The second one would be competence, the need to feel competent, capable, and effective. And the third would be relatedness. That's the word they use. It's the need to feel connected to others. So autonomy, competence, and relatedness, these psychological needs that when they're frustrated, when you don't receive them, you don't experience them, they would say there's everyone, no matter who you are, is going to feel this unsettled dis-ease about their lives. And they would kind of overlay this onto parenting and say, when parents provide support for autonomy, when they intentionally engage in behaviors and interactions that support a kid's growth in their own autonomy, you're able to satisfy this core psychological need that a kid has, which then yields a more motivated, self-regulated, and resilient human, which is what we want. So why do kids need autonomy starting around the age of 10, when self-awareness, self-consciousness kind of kicks in terms of brain development and social development? A kid starts to crave figuring out who they are, independent from who their parents say they are, to figure out their identity, their values, and their beliefs. This is to the core of what school is and helps deliver. And autonomy allows them to explore their own values, beliefs, priorities, goals, which obviously there's a threat there. There can be a big threat to parents and to a family, because offering autonomy means fundamentally they might choose something else. They might choose other values, other beliefs, other goals, other priorities, other guidelines of behavior, other ways of expressing things. And in that quest for discovery, most kids try things on for size for a time, which can feel very threatening, disorienting, chaotic to a parent. When a kid is all of a sudden expressing things that you don't value, that you don't want them to. But that is how it works. That is how offering autonomy support works. And what happens when a kid feels more in charge and control of their own choices, they're more likely to be motivated internally, which means they're going to take more ownership of their goals rather than feeling pressured or controlled, which then yields and builds confidence in kids in decision-making, problem-solving, and allowing them to have the capacity to trust in their own abilities to handle setbacks, roadblocks, barriers, and challenges. And kind of ironically, offering more autonomy support to your kid is going to help you build a stronger relationship. And it's a bit counterintuitive. It can feel paradoxical to allow your kid to have a longer leash or no leash at all is actually going to strengthen the relationship, because they don't feel abandoned, they feel supported. And that's the key difference. So what is autonomy? Autonomy is encouraging your kids to express their opinions and make their own decisions, allowing them to express it, even if it's different. It means supporting their ability to take ownership and be in charge of their responsibilities, their obligations. It also means offering guidance without imposing strict control allowing them to have freedom within a framework. And it also means respecting their choices. It's not permissive parenting. It doesn't mean letting your kids do whatever they want without boundaries. It's not about abandoning guidance or allowing them to do whatever they want to do. It's not controlling every decision to protect them. And it's this balance between setting clear expectations and limits while giving them freedom to make choices within those boundaries. So let me give you some examples, because these are, this is kind of a conceptual idea. Okay, homework. So I'm going to kind of walk through a few concepts of what it would look like and what it wouldn't look like to offer autonomy support. Okay, so homework. So here's what you wouldn't say. Hey, you need to finish your homework before you do anything else, because you stumbled upon your kid on their phone or playing a game or watching a show. That's not autonomy support. Autonomy support would sound like this. Hey, what's your plan for getting your homework done tonight? Let me know how I can support you. And then expecting a response. What's your plan? Okay, so chores around the house. Offering choices is really helpful. Hey, would you rather do the dishes or take out the trash tonight? That's, you choose. Rather than, this is your job, and I'm gonna hound you until you do it. So allowing them to decide how and when they complete their tasks within a given time frame. I need you, before we sit down for dinner, you need to do one of two things, and here's what it's going to be. Instead of you signing them up, this is kind of pretty obvious to some, not to others. Instead of signing them up for an activity, a class, extra coaching, tutoring, instead of doing that, asking them over time, what are you interested in next? What are you interested in now? Let's figure out how we can make that happen. Rather than trying to micromanage their friendships or get really involved, to ask questions like, how do you feel when you're around that friend? And what do they bring out in you? Those are open-ended questions. Instead of stepping in to solve their problems with a teacher or friend or coach, say, what do you think would be the best way to handle this situation? I'm here if you want to talk through it. That's autonomy support. Now, technology, screen time, social media. What do you think is a reasonable amount of time for, pick the app, pick the thing, pick the device. Let's agree on something that works for both of us. It's a negotiation. It's input. It's allowing them to think and express and talk, and then to share your reasoning behind why you're concerned or what your kind of boundaries would be. And then finally, I don't know, almost any situation with a family rule, that we would start inviting their input. What kind of routines, what kind of things do you want us to do that would work better for our family? I want to hear your ideas. So you get to a sense where it's much more collaborative. You're treating them like a peer. You're treating them like an adult by asking them questions, and listening to their feedback, considering their thoughts and ideas, not overriding, not shutting down, not dictating, not prescribing what they're going to do and how they're going to act and how they're going to talk. And that's not okay in our house. And it's allowing them to move around. It's allowing them to step into the clothing of adulthood. So let me kind of wrap this up. Autonomy doesn't mean stepping away. I think it means stepping into a new role as a guide and a supporter, because the ultimate goal is for them to be managing their own affairs. And when your kid feels more trusted and more respected by you, they will develop the confidence and the internal drive, the intrinsic motivation, as well as emotional resilience. And it's not easy to balance guidance with independence, because all those things still matter. Who they become and what they do is important, dearly important to you and I as parents. But it's one of the most impactful ways that you can nurture and further your kids' growth. So letting go is how you help your kids grow. So what's one area you can offer your kid more autonomy this week? I want to invite you to take that quiz that I mentioned, the Parenting Autonomy Quiz, as well as a link to an article that digs into this in further detail. And we're talking about this all the time. If you look through our library of podcasts on YouTube or on audio, look at our articles on our website. We're here to support you, parents, to give your kids what they need to thrive. So we'll be back soon with another episode.